Welcome to the first I Lie. So today is March 12th, 2020, and I think it's a perfect day to start I Lie, which is a weekly podcast from this little expat from the Bahamas. Nothing important, just the way that I'm seeing things unfold in the world. So anyway, unless you're like living on another planet, you know that the new thing is this coronavirus. And I tried to warn my friends. I tried to warn a whole bunch of people. I'm like, after getting so many false flags from, media, from social media, from the media, whatever, whenever a big looming catastrophe happens, we're bombarded with negative things in the news. So recent times is that whenever we get the negative news, we get so much of it that when we get real news, it's hard for our brains to process what's happening. So this is called cognitive dissonance, where regardless of the evidence, no matter how slow moving or whatever, we kind of put a wall in front of this evidence and we say, hey, this thing's not happening. This is not actually happening right now. It's got to be something else that's going on. But hey, people, climate change and new viruses because of climate change and human behavior because of globalization, these things will bring about some really major disasters in the future. And we have to be prepared for them. So I'm not gonna drill you with what we should be doing. We should be reducing our CO2 emissions. We should be investing more in health and education so people know what's going on, communications. But hey, I'm not here for that. I'm here to talk about this coronavirus. It's been a few months now. At one point, it was a hoax. I don't know if you guys remember that. He who shall not be named, there are some politicians who thought it was a bright idea to calm the markets by saying, hey, this thing's not real. It's not real. I don't know what they're blowing out of proportion. It's not real. I don't know if they actually believe that, but maybe they did. But all of this was an attempt to calm the markets and to rush along and try to figure out a cure or find a magic pill that would magically sweep this disaster under the rug, because we always do. We got the money. Why can't it happen? Well, it turns out there are some things money can't buy, and a cure seems to be one of them. And with that said, right, one of the things, the ironic thing about this whole thing is that I woke up this morning, looked at the stock market like I usually do, and I'm like, let me catch up to speed what happened. So last night, the president, smartly so, I think, in a certain way, maybe a little too late, or maybe he could do it in a much more tactful way, suspended flights from Europe. Well, that right there is the last straw. I mean, that if that doesn't prove that this is a big disaster, nothing will. So, the stock markets just predictably, I predicted it about 2 months ago when I first heard about the news in China, has essentially crashed. So right now, in 1 week, the stock market went something from 28,000. I think right now it's currently at 21,000. 28,000 to 21,000. That's like a 10,000 gap drop in 1 week. The last time something like this happened was 2008. Yeah. That whole to-do, the global recession, all of that. So what I'm saying, right, is like, this is real. This affects the thing. The thing that I find very interesting about capitalists. I'm not gonna pick on Americans. I'm not gonna pick on Europeans. I'm not gonna pick on that section. Just capitalists in general. It doesn't matter what company, what country you're from. Is that they are so well protected in the modern age. Back in the day, like the Dark Ages or whatever, at least you could look outside your castle and see the pitchforks and fire. You don't even see that anymore. There's a gate and security guards now. So you don't even see the anger. And now, if you are very arrogant, if you're a very arrogant person, you may not see the lighting of the pitchforks. And this is one version of that, is when things become real and it starts to affect them, now it's the end of the world. So, it's kind of funny, if people looked at things like climate change or growing inequality amongst the poor, the same way that they looked at this coronavirus thing, or health, for instance, I think the world would be a little bit different, don't you think? Yeah, all of a sudden there'd be wind turbines, solar power. Hell, we'd be on Mars at this point. That's probably why the Mars program is about to accelerate over the next 50 years. But anyway, back to the point. Right now, as we are speaking, I'm just going to check what because we were talking about the stock market. Just going to quickly check what the current stock market is, because if you didn't know, today they halted it. I wanted to talk about that for a second. How can you halt the stock market in a free trade environment? This is a thought that I always had. One of the things about the US, or capitalists, like I say, one of the major thing that they want is a free market. Not understanding what a free market is. This is not a free market. Just because when there's a natural disaster, if everyone chooses to sell off, you can't stop that process in a free market. Yes, it's turbulent. Yes, it messes everything up. Yes, it causes panic, but that's the reality of the situation. So there are things that happened earlier this morning that I think go contrary to a free market. Yes, they protect the consumer, and yes, they may be needed, but stop saying you want a free market. You don't. When you start adding tariffs to anyone who disagrees with you, whenever you manipulate them, whenever you, let's say, inflate, when you could control inflation through the Federal Reserve, and when the banks can have meetings on a daily basis on how they're going to increase and decrease interest rates and how they're going to compete against each other, that's not a free market. That's a closed loop. That's the opposite. That's a closed group of people deciding on how financials are going to be flowing. And if only one country is in control of the whole Earth's financial system, that one group essentially controls the flow of money. That's not a free market, guys. I'm sorry to say. But moving on, right now the Dow Jones is at, well, not too bad. It's at 21. It's about 21,000 right now. So I guess the freezing of the markets essentially did help, because when it opened up, it was about 8%. It's particularly crazy because I'm quite bullish on Tesla. So I'm actually grinning from ear to ear because I'm waiting for that price to drop below 500 so I can just jump on in there, but whatever. That's a whole nother story. The financial markets is a really big indicator of the confidence of what's going on. But I just wanted to update everyone on how serious the coronavirus thing is, just to bring people up to speed of why this thing is such a big deal, right? So primarily affects people with poor health. That's the elderly or the sickly primarily. So if you're over the age of 50, 60, this is something that talks directly to you. Never before in my memory that I can think of an illness that targets 15 times more deadly than your average influenza. And I keep hearing say, oh yeah, well the flu is affecting 42 million people. Way more people die because of the flu. So why are we talking about the flu? Well, guess what? The flu is being around forever, right? There's different types of strains. It keeps mutating, whatever. Coronavirus is essentially a newer type of flu. Much more dangerous type of flu. So wherever the flu goes, the coronavirus will go. Duh. So if the flu affects 42 million people per year, guess what the coronavirus is going to do? It's going to affect 42 million people per year. The problem is the coronavirus has a much higher fatality rate. That's the problem. So what you're left with is a very powerful strain of flu. Kills almost indiscriminately. Once you have poor health, you develop pneumonia type sicknesses, and you could very well die. You need to protect yourself, especially if you have a parent or anything. Make sure keep them inside just for a little bit. But I think the really hurtful part about this is that it's not going to go away anytime soon. This is a problem that's going to persist for many months. You're not going to wake up next week and then everything's going to be okay. No, it's just like the flu. It's going to be in circulation, and a high percentage of people will get this disease. I wanted to share just some things that you can do to protect yourself, but it's almost an inevitability, but especially if you're in that demographic that this affects, you may want to take this a little bit more seriously. So if you have a parent or whatever, just educate them, tell them what they should do. So first off, this is a disease that is airborne. There's some conflicting things that I was hearing over the few weeks, but it is definitely airborne. Just the simple fact of breathing can transmit this virus pretty much. So you may be completely fine, symptom free. You might have mild symptoms because you have a pretty healthy immune system, but just the contact, just being in the same area of someone who is healthy, can transmit this virus. The other thing about this virus that makes it unique is that it stays alive so long outside of the human body. So a little cough and a little rub on a surface, it will stay on that surface for a week, over a week. Anyone that touches that surface, all right, they're at risk. So, those are just, two small details that people kind of gloss over. Yeah, it's a pretty persistent disease. The coronavirus is mutating. Yeah, they found another strain in China. So this problem just went from 6 months to perhaps a year, if they can't contain it. Currently in the US, there's about 938 cases, 29 deaths. Now, if you remember last week, when I started first hearing about this, pretty much, at least that's the way it felt, there were cases in the tens, no deaths. That's how fast this thing moves. I think every week it multiplies by a factor of 4 even. So, yeah, I think the statistics are very scary. In the next few months, we're going to have something like 480,000 deaths worldwide. Yeah, you heard right, 480,000. A vaccine is years away in the making. They're trying to get on it, but vaccines take time because if you get it wrong, you make the symptoms even worse. So the reality is, everyone that's infected with the flu, you potentially have a big issue on your hand. So yeah, with 45 million to 150 million worldwide expected to be infected over the next year, this is a pretty big problem, guys. The only reason why people aren't freaking out is because you need the financial systems to sustain, so business sustains, so the whole system, this whole hierarchy that that has been built on sand pretty much stays somewhat afloat. So yeah, I mean, that's the sad reality of this, is a lot of people will get sick this year and a lot of people are going to die worldwide. So yeah, if you're old, it's kind of funny because we joke sometimes like, oh, if all the old people just go away, the world will be a better place. Well, I think the earth is kind of answering some people's wishes. So yeah, if you have a parent or someone who's elderly, you probably want to advise them on how to keep safe. And one of the main things is be very selective with who you're socializing with and keep it at a minimum. Fist bumps, no bro hugs. I'm kind of a bro hug kind of guy. Like, come here, yeah, keep it in the family. But now I can't even do that. So it's kind of crazy, man. Face masks, for instance, they protect other people from you, but they don't protect you from other people. That's one of the myths that have been busted because there's gaps in the side, and we know this thing is airborne. So yeah, if you know someone who's elderly, maybe wear a face mask so you don't get them infected. So yeah, if you know someone who's a little on the older side, maybe you want to wear a face mask like your parents or whatever. Maybe wipe things down, keep things very clean, keep your interaction kind of limited. Call, FaceTime, bring them what they need, and then get the frig out of there, right? So yeah, this is the kind of world that we live in at the moment. So yeah, I don't, with all this said, I'm not on the pessimistic side of things. I'm actually surprisingly optimistic about this. Maybe because I'm not in the demographic for this thing. But yeah, I think if I could get a little spiritual with you for a second, I think the planet's kind of angry, right? I mean, I think that this just proves that no matter how smart us humans think we are nothing compared to nature. We don't even hold a candle to what could really be done to us. You know, an asteroid can come from space and end life as we know it right now. So, you know, a little less arrogance, a little bit more preparation, a little bit more education, a little bit more love for our fellow man. So, you know, it's just one or two thoughts. But, you know, it's going to be interesting how this plays out politically. So, you know, the whole touting for the current political party is economics, economics, economics. Well, guess what? On your watch, the economics fell. Not saying that the other guys could have done it better. This is something totally unpredictable. No one could predict this thing. Well, a few smart people did, actually. You know, there's a few disease, and the CDC has been for at least a decade been warning of an upcoming disease that could really affect human health. If not, you know, it could. We've been told about this, but no preparation, virtually no preparation on a global scale has happened in preparation for such a disease or something that's even worse. And I think that's the scary part. The scary part is that this disease is not even as bad as it could be. Imagine something that affects all the age ranges. That's really horrible and really hard to detect. And I think we're in an era where a future like that can't happen. So yeah, it's gonna be, I don't know, maybe get those cheap tickets right now, because a little later it's gonna be even more hard to fly. You know, I've been considering going to Japan, if they will allow me to go at this point. I mean, the tickets are pretty cheap, so I may just do that. But yeah, I have a few flights in the next few weeks. After that, I may just lock it down. Anyway, that's a few points from what I can see. Hopefully this thing blows over, but that's just a little information. You know, hopefully we learn from this and we can prepare better. Not trying to point any fingers, could have happened to any administration. I lie. This is a messed up situation. I lie. But yeah, just boost your immune system and just keep your distance for a little bit until we see where this thing is going. And good luck. So yeah, every day tech news is still coming out. Every week I Lie will be coming out more frequently. Thank you guys who've been hanging in. All 10 of y'all. So for all the 10 guys that are watching this, thank you for hanging in. There's some exciting things coming our way. I Lie will be a weekly thing, talking about these topics. But I'm gonna delve a little bit deeper into this coronavirus thing. I think this was just some quick thoughts that I had to get out because it's so juicy, right? So yeah, but every day I'm gonna try to do a Tech Minute, and yeah, let's see what happens with that. All right, guys. Until next time. Be safe.